There is an inherent fear that the success we have achieved might slip away. This fear can stem from various factors such as the pressure to maintain a certain level of accomplishment or the fear of not meeting expectations. And that fear, if we allow it, can lead us down a pattern of self-sabotage. Okay, that knocked on my own door because that's definitely something I personally deal with, and I know a lot of people personally deal with. Anytime we're given a new instruction or a new job or something like that, my first thought is responsibility. Now I'm responsible for something outside of myself. Now somebody is expecting me to do what I said I have the ability to be able to do, right? But when we lean into our own self and not that calling that God placed within us, then that's when we can allow that anxiety to stop us from doing the things that we know that we need to do. We create that pattern of self-sabotage, which is meaning either you didn't go to sleep on time, or you didn't properly prepare, or anything. The little small things can be a form of self-sabotage. And so in Exodus 3, we're talking about Moses. And so what does all of that have to do with Moses? Well, let's take a look and see. Moses was a Hebrew baby born in a time of persecution. Moses grew up in the palace despite being born to Hebrew slaves. Moses was spared death. For all accounts and purposes, we can even say that Moses grew up spoiled, being in Pharaoh's house. When he became of age, he had a reality check while witnessing the mistreatment of the Hebrews by the guards of the slave taskers. This disturbed Moses so much that it alerted the calling God placed in his life within him. The calling at this point was lying dormant, but seeing this mistreatment had pricked that calling, and Moses reacted. He reacted out of himself, though, not out of God. Moses ended up killing the Egyptian. His goal was to free the slave from the master, but it was not yet his time. He moved recklessly because he moved before consulting God. Moses had the right calling, but the wrong time. God hadn't released Moses to be a deliverer yet. So naturally, Moses did like we all do when we make a move without consulting God. He went the wrong way, and fear hit him. This caused him to be full of fear and to run for his life into a distant land. Now, at this point, Moses probably thought this new life that he created for himself in this distant land was going to be all that he ever was going to receive. He thought because of the mistakes that he made, this was it for him. But God was actually using all of his mistakes and his missteps and his new life as a shepherd as preparation for his true calling as a deliverer of God's people. In reality, Moses spent his entire life running from something. He was running from death when his mother placed him in the basket. He was running from the consequences of killing the Egyptian guard. And now let's see what he might be running from. So in Exodus 3, it says, Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him, a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will not turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. And he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Now, I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of someone who commands great respect. Great, you can even think of your parents. Like, you see them as you've grown up. Everybody sees their parents as a superhero. I see mom do this. I might see dad do this. And so when they're in the moment of where you're going to receive instructions from them, sometimes it's kind of hard to look them in the face. I recall I had made a mistake and my dad was fussing at me. Well, I'm 5'3", my dad was 6'1". I couldn't look him in the face because I was gonna cry, right? That was a different type of fear. I was afraid in that moment. Like, I knew I was wrong, but I knew I had to hear what he had to say. Could I look him in the face? No. Did he receive that well? Not particularly. But if I looked him in the face, I was gonna cry. I was gonna have a reaction, right? And I knew, knowing my father, he wasn't gonna want to see those tears because you knew. And so here we are. So Moses seems to have that kind of reaction, like, okay, this is God. I can't look you in the face. I'm afraid to look at. He had a healthy fear, is what it's called. Not being afraid that you're going to destroy me, but there's a healthy reverence, a respect that you have. And Moses was showing that respect that he had for God. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. These are all going to be good things. God is telling Moses, okay, now's the time. I'm calling you to be a deliverer now. But he didn't say in Moses' own strength. He said, I'm going to do this. Moses is just going to be the tool that God utilizes. Now remember, before he ran out of Egypt, he was like, I'm going to be a deliverer myself. And what he did, he ended up killing somebody. God said, that's what you did in your own strength. Well, let me show you what I can do with you in my strength. All right? So for Moses, he had a hard time comprehending this. If we jump over to 11, Moses said, and Moses said unto God, who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Moses wasn't thinking about the God that was calling him to do it in that moment. He was thinking, why am I being chosen? Because a lot of times as humans, we think about a laundry list of mistakes that we made. We think about a laundry list of could have beens with should have beens, and all the things that you cut somebody out 5 minutes ago, right? You're thinking about that instead of the strength that God is going to place into you, instead of the calling that God has on your life. So this was on brand for Moses to question God's calling, because when we look at our life and only see or give recognition to the low points, it creates an anxiety within us. We start to think that we could never do X, Y, and Z, or that we will always be seen as inadequate or as a failure. But that's not true. The truth is that everyone makes mistakes. Everyone takes missteps. Everyone has dropped a ball or 2 or 3. But the beauty is in what God does with those drop balls or those missteps. He creates a path to his will for your life. So I want to encourage everybody to not allow anxiety of how it's going to happen to stop you from taking that step forward with God. Because God has a calling on everybody's life. And if we allow how we see ourselves to be the determining factor of what we do, we'll never get to what God really wants us to do. There are things that agitate you throughout life, and I find those a lot of times is what God is going to call you to move out, to restore. Whatever is bothering you has a link to your calling. It has a prickling to your calling. Just like when Moses saw that slave being hurt, and he wanted to, in his mind, he was like, okay, well, I need to save him. That was a prickling to his calling. Now, you can't move without God, because that's when we make that extra misstep. But definitely be encouraged and let that anxiety fly off of you. Here are a few scriptures that can help. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Amen. And that's all I have.
Amen. 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 Great word. Great word.